Hi everyone, welcome to the Firefish Software Future of Rec crowdcast. I'm your host Cameron McLennan, and with me today I've got Benjamin Dennehy. Hey Benjamin, thanks very much for joining us. Benjamin, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day-to-day to come on this as a guest. Before we go ahead and kick off with the questions that I want to ask you and any of the questions that come in on the right-hand side, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm widely regarded as UK's most hated sales trainer, primarily because I'm pretty tough, I'm pretty brutal. I don't take excuses, and I know that most of the problems people have selling, and recruitment consultants are salespeople, despite what they may say to themselves. And the excuses that they make are, well, the reasons why they can't sell are all internal. And so my job is to hold up the ugly mirror, and some people don't like what they see. Some people don't want to change what they see. So we're creatures of comfort, and sometimes we don't want to change what we know to be comfortable. It may look like it's working, but, so my job is to challenge, it's to push, and 2 in 10 salespeople that I meet will do what I teach. The rest would rather keep doing what they're doing. And the company I work for is called Sandler Training. It's a global training and sales management company, 32 countries, 250 offices, very big, very successful, and it does what it says on the tin.
So why is it that salespeople hate you so much?
Well, if the braces, bow tie, and hair aren't enough, what do they have? Because my job is to make people realize that the fundamental reason why they struggle to sell is A, they're not professional, B, they don't have a system or process that keeps them in control, and C, that is underpinned by the beliefs that they have that stop them from succeeding. So I write about this frequently. Most salespeople are buyers. Then they put on a hat that says salesperson, and you can only ever perform to a level that your beliefs will allow you. So you cannot behave in a manner inconsistent with your beliefs. So if you are a buyer by nature, when you're out selling, excuses, the sorts of things that buyers give you to delay the process, to procrastinate, you accept as valid, because it's what you do as a buyer. So think it overs are a classic. Recruitment consultants will get this up. We need to think it over. The reason you accept that is because when you're out buying, don't you say you need to think it over? Mm-hmm. So you accept it. So my job is to challenge those beliefs, make you realize they're wrong, and get you to change them. But we hold on to our beliefs with ferocity, and we never want to let go of what we believe to be true, even if it's hurting us.
And why is it that people who sell make so many mistakes?
Repeat the question, sorry?
Why do you think people, when it comes to sales, make so many mistakes?
It's a pretty broad question. Is there any specific mistake you're thinking of that you'd like to throw out to me?
I guess, well, we might get onto this later on, but the whole contingency versus retained argument, only pitching contingent, that'd be a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, well let's grab the bull by the horns. Selling contingency versus retained. It's simple. Selling contingency is order taking. That's it. Anyone can do what recruiters do, because they do most of the stuff up front for free. It's a race to the bottom. It's a first past the post system. So it takes skill to get retained. It takes salesmanship to get retained. I mean, could you imagine going to 6 barristers and saying, I've been charged with murder. I'd like each of you to put forward the defense that you're going to run for me. I want you then to pitch the idea to me, and the first one that I like the best, I'm going to take and run with. Do you think any of them would participate in that charade?
No.
No. So why do recruiters do it? Fundamental reasons. One, they don't believe they're professionals. They claim they're professionals, but they don't act like professionals. Remember, it goes back to beliefs. You can only act in a manner consistent with your beliefs. If you were a professional, why would you do all the legwork, all the stuff of value up front for free? Secondly, I believe a lot of them don't believe they have the right to be in front of C-suite individuals. Their self-concept is low. They struggle to challenge authority. So the idea of saying to someone, well, actually, we provide value. What you want us to do up front for free, that's the value. Yet you want us to give it away to you. And they say, well, I'll just go somewhere else. And that's the other problem. They have educated their consumer how to buy from them. And they've told consumers we're all willing to do it for free. We're willing to give away as much as possible. We want you to like us, so we'll do as much for you as we can to get you to buy from us. They've educated them that way. And so that's what their buyer expects. I mean, think about it. Think about this. McDonald's sells hamburgers, right? Yet they manage to get people to pay up front.
Yeah.
And they're not even a profession.
So from that point of view, then, if you're watching this at the moment and you're recruiting and you do recruit mainly on a contingency basis, but you want to try and win more retained assignments, where should you start?
You've got to start with your belief system. You've got to believe that you add value. I think deep down, most recruiters don't think they really add a huge amount of value to the process. I mean, take me, for instance. I'm not a recruiter, but right now I'm helping 2 separate companies recruit a salesperson. And I'm doing it on a 100% retained exclusive arrangement. And the fee they're paying me is going to be higher than what I know most recruiters would be getting for the same position. Plus, they may have to go to a recruiter to get CVs, because that is the thing. Most people see recruiters as CV farmers. You've got the data, you've got the people, you're a supplier of a commodity. If they didn't have to use you, they probably wouldn't. And so they don't value recruiters, and I don't think recruiters value what they do. Well, they don't, because they wouldn't give it away for free if they did.
So how did you get to that point with that client then, where you managed to get onto a retainer versus them saying, well, I'm not paying you a retainer to do that. I'm just going to go and do what we normally do and go contingent?
I did what a consultant does. I asked them the questions that they couldn't answer. I made them realize the challenges and the pitfalls of getting this right. I went through all the alternatives of using me. They didn't want to use a recruitment consultant because they said their fear was they would just send them what they thought was right. They wouldn't do what I did in the entire 2-hour meeting that I had with them. I got them to understand that recruiting a salesperson or any person is tough. Recruiters often don't ask the right questions. They ask housekeeping questions. They don't get to the nub of it. They often recruit, or they take what do you call it? They take a briefing, don't they? A job spec. And it's a very intellectual driven process. They focus on the wrong things. They focus on skills, experience, and results. And you look at the CVs they draft. They talk about, those are great. They're nice to have, but none of those are what you would consider predictors of success. So when I go and I ask questions that make the managing director in both cases say to themselves, I don't know. What habits are you specifically going to be recruiting for that you know will make this person successful? They say, well, I don't really know. Well, then how are you going to know when they walk through the door if it's written on a CV? What are the behaviors that they will demonstrate consistently and daily? What are their questioning habits? What do they have to be like? What are the beliefs that make a good salesperson? What are the beliefs that make a good finance director or a good CEO? What beliefs should they possess? Recruiters rarely ever dig deep. They take surface level housekeeping job specs. And how can you sell value when you're not actually adding any value?
So do you think that's one of the key things to get retained assignments then, is to make sure that you're adding business level value to the discussion?
Think about it. Well, why does anyone go to a consultant? You're supposed to know more about their problem than them, aren't you? That's the whole point. I mean, you go to a lawyer for help because you don't understand the law, and you go to a doctor because you're not a doctor and they know more about it. So if you're going to get people to pay you up front for what you do, you have to be able to get them to discover through the sales process, you know more about their problem, you know more about their pain than they do, and you know how to fix it. But in order for me to get off my ass and spend any time thinking about you or your problem, because it is their problem, remember, I think recruiters forget that. It's their problem. If you don't value, I'm not going to get off my ass and try and fix that until you pay me. But if they can't get that across through the sales process, why would you ever pay them? It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we were going to give a ton of value here to the audience, I mean, if you were only allowed to give recruiters one bit of sales advice ever again, what would it be?
Oh, there's so many bits of advice. What's the one bit of advice I'd give? One of the things I think is most important for sales is self-concept. If you don't believe you belong sitting in front of a CEO and you're able to manage that CEO or MD on their level as an equal, then you're always going to lose. You're always going to be just a supplier. Decision makers want to buy and have relationships and partnerships with people that are like them. They want to know they're in a safe pair of hands. I believe most people in sales, not just recruitment, but in sales, don't have that self-concept. They are almost childlike when they get in front of these people, and they defer to them, they demur to them, they are scared to challenge them. So my one piece of advice would be, if you believe that you can help this company or this individual, and you know you can, then by God, get paid for it. Get the value you deserve and demonstrate it, not by kowtowing, but by asking them tough, challenging, and uncomfortable questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I read a post of yours recently on LinkedIn about something you call sales dysphoria. I found the whole, something really, really interesting. Can you explain a bit more about what sales dysphoria is and how you would suggest people overcome it?
Again, these are complicated issues to just fix in a podcast, but sales dysphoria is basically, it is a bar trapped inside a salesperson's body. And as I've already said, we can only act in a manner consistent with our beliefs. Because you are a buyer most of your life, when you go out selling, that buyer dictates how you're going to behave and conduct yourself in a sales meeting. So most salespeople have a fear of taking control. So if I'm recruiting a salesperson, I want to understand what are their control and close habits like? How do they control a meeting? How do they create parity with the person they're engaging with from the moment they walk in? So most salespeople struggle to do this because they have been taught certain things. Many people believe things like the customer is king, the buyer is always right. The man with the gold makes the rules. And that's because when they're buying, they believe they're in control, don't you? When you're out buying something, don't you feel you're in control because it's your money?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means when you're selling to someone, you tend to put your prospect on a pedestal because all they do is wave a bit of money at you and say, this could be yours. You've just got to dance a little bit for me. So hope then kicks in. Yeah, and sales dysphoria, I say it's fed by a drug called hopium. Hopium is the number one thing that recruiters and salespeople hold on to for dear life. Hope is what gets them through the night. Hope is what gets them through the weekend. It's the promise that maybe at some point a deal may come in. And I won't go into the bar seller dance today, but the whole psychology behind the way people buy and sell is designed to keep salespeople in place. Buyers know that they'll buy anything if they get good salespeople in front of them. In fact, that's why procurement was created. Corporate America figured out pretty quickly, you put good salespeople in front of our purchasing people and they buy. Let's create a process that will dehumanize it, take away their ability to actually appeal to the real reasons why people buy. So, yeah, sales dysphoria is acting like a buyer in a salesman's body. Or person's body, I should say.
So, what's the difference between a suspect, a prospect, a customer, and a client, and why does the language you use with each matter?
Well, the language is thoroughly important. So, a suspect is basically anybody that can fog a mirror. So, there are 7 billion people on Earth that, in theory, could buy what you have. That's probably an overstatement, but you get what I'm getting at. So, a suspect is somebody that sends in an email or picks up the phone and says, "I'm interested in what you have." That's all that. They're a suspect. An expression of interest is not a buying signal. A prospect is someone that, well, there's a prospect and a qualified prospect. So in my world, a qualified prospect possesses 5 things. They're a decision maker. They have to be in my target market. They have a willingness and ability to invest the money, time, and resources to fix their problem. They have to have a problem I can fix today, not in 6 months, not in 9 months, not in 12 months, but today. And they have to be working to a clearly defined timetable. If someone has 5 of those attributes, then I'm willing to invest time in speaking further with them. So a prospect before that is someone who says we're interested in us. They're still uncommitted. As a salesman is to find those 5 things. Once I understand that, then I'll move to the next level to qualify if they are deserving of a presentation or me giving my solution. No one gets a solution from me until they've demonstrated they have a problem I can fix and they want to fix it, that they have the budget, both money, time and resources to fix it, and I know how the decision is going to be made, because I'll present my solution back once to everybody for a decision to their budget to fix the problems they told me they want to fix.
Okay.
That's a qualified prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. Smashing.
And so language is important. Language is important. A client is giving you money. I hear people all the time saying, I was talking to the client the other day, and I said, oh, so they're paying you. Oh, no, I don't mean client. They are different. And remember, there is no sale until money clears. We live in a world where a handshake and a contract means nothing, you know?
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to drag people through the court. Until money clears in your account, you do not have a sale. So no high-fiving or punching the sky when you walk out of a meeting and people have shaken your hands and said, we're in. That's when you get lazy.
I think a lot of the people that tune into these, they're all running their own agencies, and they would all love the way whereby they come into the office every day and all they have to do is work retained assignments. That's the dream for I think every single recruiter would love to be working that way. But I think sometimes
how many people ever actually asked for it though?
Yeah, well, I think
you'll find not a lot. Or they asked once or twice and they got rejected, so they gave up. So they quit.
So for you,
it's hard to get paid up front.
Yeah, if you're competing with all other agencies in the market and they're all recruiting on a contingency basis, and your client is only ever working with people on a contingency, other people with a contingency basis, what advice would you give to them to sort of change that mindset and not be afraid to ask for a retainer? How do you get people to shift their mindset and be like, right, okay, stop asking for contingency business now. Let's make a move on to retained, and this is the best way we're going to approach it.
The honest answer is it's bloody hard. There's no easy way to do it. This is an addictive drug. It's hopium. I'll give a true story. Back in November, I currently work with an executive search recruitment company. Last year I had another meeting with another set of recruiters, and through the discovery process what we identified was that they spend 90 hours a month on unpaid work. So they're trying to find placements for jobs that never ever fill. 90 hours. We gave that a figure of £200 an hour because that's what these people are worth. So what is that? 200 times 90 is what? 18,000. £18,000 a month they're giving away free. But the risk of losing the other 18,000, the other 90 hours a month that they did that paid them on a contingency basis, the risk of fear of losing that meant that it justified doing the other crap. See, the biggest problem that people will have in recruitment is the fear of someone saying no. Nobody likes to hear no. That's why contingency, you're kind of hard to fail at contingency because most of you are going to lose. So the failure factor is built in. They don't have to feel bad about themselves. So if you want to get out of contingency onto retained, first you need to prove to people through your questions that you deserve to be retained. Second, you need to believe you provide a service that is deserving of being retained. And it is. If good recruiters are worth their weight in gold, just like good lawyers or good accountants. But there's a lot of crap lawyers. There's a lot of crap accountants. So good ones can command us. And I think you'll find that good ones do get retained, because this isn't something that doesn't currently happen. Why is it that some sell retained and some can't? It's a mindset. They believe in the value they bring, and they get their customers, they get their prospects to see that value. Most recruiters don't. They farm CVs, throw whatever they can, and hope something will stick. It's quite it's horrible for them.
There's loads of points and stuff coming through on the right hand side. I just want to identify one from Joe Woods. He's saying, or she's saying, I don't know if it's he or she. Apologies, Joe. Do you think there are circumstances in which your client would never pay a retainer, or a market where it's not feasible, or do you feel there's always a chance of winning a retainer?
Well, that's down to you. If your model is we only take retained, then you have to plant your feet. Salespeople are inherently weak and buckle under pressure. So if you say we're only selling retained, then you've got to go out and retain. That's it. Only you can decide whether you do contingency or not. The customer only has one option. They have choice. They can go anywhere they want. But at the end of the day, People who use recruiters want to find the right person that's actually probably going to add to the business, add value, whatever it is. You'd find that all out. So no, there is no reason why it can't work in any market, in any sector. It's down to you. Do you wimp out, or do you plant your feet and say, no, I know my value? You go to a top QC and ask him or her, is there any instance in which you won't get paid a retainer up front? Is there any case? No.
Yeah. Quite often, recruiters will come up against the objection of that their client has like a closed PSL, and someone's asked a question about, do you have any suggestions about how you would overcome that if you contact a company and say, look, we've got a closed PSL, we're not working with any other agencies?
Well, a PSL at the end of the day is nonsense, because it's like an agreement. Any agreement can be broken. There's no loyalty in business. I think people seem to think there is. There isn't, unless it's family. So most PSLs can be broken, especially if you're able to demonstrate to senior decision makers that you have a better offering. It's business. You need to go higher, go to the top, stop talking to the underlings, go at director level and get them to realize that the PSL actually isn't in their benefit. That's your job. That's a salesman's job. At the end of the day, a CEO or a managing director can make a decision to go outside of whatever process they choose if they want to, if they believe that it's in the business's best interest, isn't it?
Yeah.
So PSLs, just like procurement, not all the time, but most of the time could be got around. Now, there's always an exception to the rule. I don't want people writing in tears saying that there's an exception to every rule. But it'll be down to your mindset. If you don't believe you can get around a PSL, you'll never get around it.
Yeah. Another great question coming in from Joe there again, saying that they've developed a relationship with a client over years and years of working with them on a contingency basis. How does one convert this to a retained business and convince them to change the established process that they've had in place for years and years? Can they do that?
They could, but it could be uncomfortable. I mean, I'd go in and ask them questions. Do you value us, and do you value what we do? Why have you worked with us for so long? What is it that's kept you coming back? Go to them and say, look, we have to put our fees up by 10%. See if that loyalty and that relationship starts to crack. This is an illness in salespeople. The belief that they have great relationships with people that they cannot be broken, and that the relationships are so thick that they like them and they love them. At the end of the day, it's business, and people will change supplier. And you are a supplier on a contingency basis, aren't you? You're not a partner. You're a supplier. So I don't care how much loyalty you think you've got. At the end of the day, you're disposable.
I guess the danger about being long-term contingent with a client like that is that perhaps maybe they do, once you're relying on that contingency revenue coming in, and eventually they decide that they're going to mix that up and move supplier, and you don't have that concrete relationship there. Whereas I guess with the retainer, you are sort of cementing that, and you're obviously adding a lot of value to the business if you manage to get that.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you went to an existing client who's on contingency and you asked them to go to retained and they said no, what does that say about the relationship you actually have with them?
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah, no.
What does it say? No, actually, we don't value you. That's why we don't want to pay you for what you do up front, but please be there when we need you. It's more like a... No, I won't say that. It's probably too offensive. I was going to say I won't say that. I'll get in trouble. But it sounds like the oldest profession in the world, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because the industry over years and years is very much. I mean, I know a lot of recruiters that do just work a lot of retained, but it's very, very difficult as well, particularly when they've been coached and trained from when they first got into the industry that contingency is the way it goes. And if you
goes back to programming and beliefs.
Yeah, so if you are in that, if you have been coached since you get into recruitment that contingency is just what you do, then it's very, very hard to break that model and that belief that that's just the way it is.
And there is the nub of it. It's hard.
Yeah.
So we won't do it. And that goes back to you. Yeah, this is why the ugly mirror is being held up right now. The only reason you sell contingency is because it's easier and it's harder to do it the other way.
I think there's a fear factor there as well. I mean, if you're a self-employed recruiter and you've got X amount of money coming into your business a quarter and you've got that long-term relationship with a client, I guess you're almost maybe worried that that relationship might disappear. I know what you're saying, because the relationship maybe isn't that strong anyway, but how do you get beyond that fear factor that, oh God, if I go and ask this person for a retained and they say no, I've cut off this revenue that's coming into the business maybe on a quarterly basis.
What's the only way to conquer fear?
Do it.
You've got your answer.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You know, this is why most people are employed and don't set up businesses, because setting up a business means you actually have to go out and sell. Being employed means you get paid regardless of how productive you are. Right? So don't give me this nonsense that people won't buy from us, people won't do this, people won't pay. That's rubbish. Like I said, McDonald's gets people to pay for burgers up front. Yeah. So look, McDonald's can do it. You sell something maybe not necessarily as valuable. People love McDonald's. But what I'm saying is, if you sell a service which can transform businesses, if you are a great partner, a great recruiter who spends their time focused on work you're getting paid for, imagine how much better, how much more effort, how much more focus would you give to clients if you knew you were getting paid to do your job well, as opposed to racing to the bottom?
I think again, it's like so here's another question for you. If you've been doing contingency recruitment for ages and you're making money at it, you're successful, and you are thinking about making that step over to doing retained, how do you approach that? How do you approach that client in the first place and say, hey, it's all very well saying, yeah, you need to show that, but how would you suggest that people show that value to get retained? Because it's all well and good saying, they need to be valuable. Of course they do, or you're not going to get the money. But what steps would you be giving them to make sure they're adding value to those organizations?
Well, without giving a training session online, what they need to do is first understand that in any area of life, your credibility comes from the questions you ask. Salespeople don't ask the right questions. They don't ask the deep enough questions. They fail to demonstrate their value because they don't ask questions that show they add value. And this is it. This is the one thing I focus on so much when I'm training salespeople. Your credibility comes from the questions you ask. If you can get a director of HR or a CEO or an MD scratching their head saying, I've never thought of it like that. I don't have an answer to that. I've never considered that possibility. My other agencies, my other recruiters have never asked me this. Well, why is that? I don't know. Is it because none of these questions are important to you? No, they are. Well, so why are the other people on the PSL not asking these? I don't know. Well, how does that make you feel? Well, now you pointed it. It comes down to the questions, and I cannot stress it. A salesman's job is to gather information, not give it. Recruiters fall into the typical trap of show up, throw up, and hope.
So do you think it needs to be more about the business challenges rather than just the actual position itself? What is the consequence?
What do recruiters actually fix? This is the question. They very rarely put themselves in the shoes of the people that they're working with or selling to. It's like with any product. We always look at it from the seller's perspective. You need to look at it from the buyer's perspective. What are they actually wanting to fix? And what is it that you actually fix? Putting people in jobs, putting people in careers, finding the right candidates is the mechanism by which you fix bigger problems. So you need to understand what is it we're actually, if you don't get this finance director in place by the end of March, what's the impact going to be on the business? What's the impact going to be on you personally? Why is it important that you have to have them in place by that date? What happens if you don't have them in place? Why not recruit internally? Why can't you find someone through your network of friends? Why do you need to come to us? I mean, think about it. If someone comes to you, it means they have a problem they can't fix themselves. And then you say, I'll fix it for free. That's crazy. I know it's tough not to do because you're hooked on it. It's hopium. But it's crazy. Ask better questions.
You also
tough questions, uncomfortable.
No, you're quite right. I mean, speaking to someone about this the other day about their agency owner, and they write blogs, and they were wondering who they should write a blog for to attract candidates or attract clients. And we discussed about how you should be writing them to the person whose challenges you're going to overcome. So it might be the HR director that signs off the agency spend, but if it's a technical position and the CTO's having loads of challenges, that's who you should be writing the blog for, because they're the person whose challenges your recruitment's going to overcome, or your service is going to overcome.
What most, carry on.
No, on you go, please.
I was going to say, what most salespeople and recruiters do is they fall into the trap of explaining to people how they fix things. They don't talk about what they actually fix. So people can't, I can't phone up a CEO of a company and say, I'm a sales trainer. If you use me, I will help your people to close better, and I'll help them get in front of more people, and I'll shorten the sales cycle and all that. Because that's all well and good, but I'm not sitting here thinking about that. So you have to put your solution into the world of your prospect. So if I pick up the phone to somebody, I say, look, I typically work with managing directors of recruitment companies. And they tell me they're frustrated that they got recruitment consultants who are just reluctant or not motivated to pick up the phone and prospect. Others, what they have is they have guys or girls who are incapable of getting a commitment up front. And as a result, they tend to work for free in the hope that if they do enough, they'll win the business. Or others are just annoyed that they end up discounting or over-servicing in order to win business, and it's hitting the bottom line. Does that ring true in your world? I don't need to talk about what I do. I talk about what I fix.
Yeah, okay, cool. You talk quite often as well about self-concept and self-esteem. Why are the two different, and why does it matter?
Self-concept is how you view yourself, right? So it's on a 1 to 10 scale, seems to be the scale. So a self-concept is how you view who you are when you put yourself wherever you are. So for me, I could walk into any company and sit down in front of a CEO, I don't care how big the business is, and I would treat that person exactly in the same way that I would treat a mom and pop store down the road. My self-concept is I have the right to talk to this person about what I do. I have the right to ask them questions. I have the right to get answers to those questions. I have the right to tell them I don't want to work with them. I have the right to be treated with respect. And I know that if they're talking to me, they're the one with the problem. I'm not. So why is there any pressure on me in any sales situation to make this person like me or believe in me? I don't care if you like me. What I want to find out is, do you have problems I can fix? Do you want to fix them? And do you believe I'm the person that can? There's an age-old saying, you don't have to like your lawyer. What's more important in business, liking or trusting? Ultimately, which is the one you want the most?
Trusting, I would say.
Exactly. Do you have to like your lawyer to trust they'll be great in a courtroom? No. Like helps. Exactly. Like helps if apples, everything is all alike and there's only one thing to choose between. And one is, well, I like the other person better. That's probably the only time it matters. At the end of the day, most people will give their money to someone they believe understands them, they feel they're understood, and they believe they can take that problem away. And likes are secondary. So I don't go into any sales meeting. I don't go into anything trying to get people to like me. What I want them to do is get to the end of that meeting and say, blimey, that was tough. You asked me questions I have not thought of, I have not considered. I think I need your help. Do you like me? Well, does that matter? No.
Yeah. No, I think.
So,
No, just saying. I think you've given some really good points there. I think you've also ruffled a few feathers along the way, which is never a bad thing. But I think you've definitely given some good points, and I think a lot of it is about more high level. Get more high level. Look at more business challenges, and what's the impact of not getting these the right candidate in the position from a wider point of view, rather than just focusing in on that specific job itself. And definitely, if we live in a world if we could all get more retainers, it would be a much happier place. Just before we wrap up, guys. Yeah, exactly. So just another one here. I'm just having a look at some of the questions coming in. So Joe, my new customer already has an agency they use frequently. I am looking to work closely with the client. How do we pull them from their established supplier to us and push for a retention?
So how do you plunder? Because we're in business for two reasons, aren't we? Protect what we have and plunder. Yeah. So you want to know, how do you plunder? Well, easily. You need to start chipping away. Nobody's perfect. Start asking tough questions around. Well, let me ask you a question. So, Mr. HR director, no recruitment agent. If there was just one thing that your existing supplier could do better, what would it be? Get them to tell you. Okay, so when you took that to them and asked them to do it better, what did they say? Oh, we haven't done that for a reason, or we have done it. What did they say? They said they'd fix it. Okay, well, I'm assuming they have. Well, no, they haven't. So why not? So you can start chipping away. That's your job as a salesperson. If you have something better than what your competitor has, you've got to get them to see it. Ask them the questions that make them discover you're right. We're getting shafted by these people.
Yeah, totally. Benjamin, if people want to get in touch with you after this, how's the best way to reach out to you? LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. Carrier pigeon, I find, works quite well. They always arrive, unlike text messages or emails, which can disappear into the ether. And you know that, don't you, if you're working with clients, how they disappear on you. So carrier pigeon. All my details are obviously on my LinkedIn profile. We've also got a website, www.southeast.sandler.com. You can find us there. I work with companies primarily in Hampshire, Surrey, Berkshire, Kent, or Sussex. So if you're a managing director and you want to have a chat about this, or you just want to hurl abuse at me, by all means do. I don't mind being hated. You know, everybody's Marmite in one shape or form. And yeah, I'm looking for the 2 out of the 10 that will do what I teach. The other 8, I don't care. I've actually just another good question come in there from Paul that I'd like to cover off before we actually wrap up. He's just saying, can you pitch new business for a retainer? I would assume hiring managers are reluctant to pay up front for someone only going on their word. Great question. So a lot of people will try and get in on contingency, maybe prove value, and then ask for a retainer at a later date. He wants to know if you can pitch new business as a retainer from the off.
Well, my first question is, why are you talking to a hiring manager?
Okay.
Why? Why are you talking to an influencer? You need to be talking at director level. Directors make decisions. That's why manager has manage in the title, manage, and director directs, takes decisions. You're talking too low. Simple. Go higher.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Benjamin, thanks very much for joining us today. Christine's just dropped a white paper in there as well about how to win a recruitment sales pitch if you're up against the big guys. Feel free to check out that white paper and ebook and download it and have a look. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in and coming on board again. Keep your eyes peeled for the next show. I will be announcing that in the next week. Thank you so much again, Benjamin. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope I haven't upset too many.
All the best, mate. Thank you so much. Take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.